Hi. I've actually made some notes to stick to so I don't ramble because I do always have things I want to say, but you know me, down with PTSD. Yeah, there was a specific reason, and it's morphed into just my usual inability to really do it. But specific reason is that so what I really, oh gosh, it's really hard thinking with this fucking damaged brain that I've got, and it's really painful that people get really irritated with me because I really can't help it. I really can't help it, and it's really distressing when people get angry or fed up, or and I know it's happening a lot, probably because I do, like, every now and then when it all gets just like, when everything just gets too evil and too fucking unbelievable, like too implausibly evil, but it's real, I will occasionally just fire out like emails like, hello, who the fuck is there out there? Why the fuck is nobody fucking doing anything? Like, not even me, like, don't care about me, but how can any of you regard yourselves as decent human beings and let another human being? It's not about me, it's just about, a person. It's like, there's just not much love. I don't think there's much love in anyone's hearts. I learned such a lesson about people. Humans largely have transactional relationships, and that's nothing new. Of course, we have transactional relationships, and that's perfectly acceptable. And that's a great deal of the reason humans are social creatures. Social is not the same as sociable. So that's why antisocial does not mean not sociable. It means anti-society, which I guess sort of stands in for a kind of, a large community that has some common interests, and you can do a lot of quid pro quo amongst them, and between them, and you can have some freedoms, and then there's a lot of commons, and then there's responsibilities, and the responsibilities are often just simply just to keep the machine going that keeps you going, like that's how it works. So humans are social creatures. I hear quite a lot when people say, well, that's to be understood because humans are social creatures, or dogs are social creatures, or whatever. It's like, well, no, it doesn't mean that I don't think it intrinsic. Well, it may have an extrinsic but kind of implicit part of it that means that we do, therefore, or somehow as part and parcel of that, crave human connection, social connection, but emotionally. But it just really means that we work in societies. We don't really do very well alone, right? Like some animals do. And that's fine. And even when you're in a friendship or a marriage, or a marriage probably more than a friendship, I mean, you really don't want to, it depends what you mean by best friend, but you probably don't want to marry your best friend. You probably want to marry someone who's a really good team member, and who's going to stick to their agreement in their role and their commitment, no matter how friendly they're feeling towards you at that moment. That's sort of what commitment is. It's not, when you're always feeling it. And there's lots of really good advice about how to keep relationships going strong through times when you're really not feeling it. I have not... Let us just say, it'll be a surprise to no one who's ever met me properly that I have mastered none of those. But it doesn't mean I can't admire people who can. And but it's not supposed to. I just didn't realise how completely purely transactional it was, and I went to the right wing because for a number of reasons. And actually the initial reason was not about this, but latterly I've gone to the right or stayed with the right or I mean, not that I've got any social connections really anyway, but my principles are with the right and my vote is still with the right. Because I see so much more active compassion for humans, so for everybody. And what that means is that you take your emotions or your hysteria out of it, and you just look at what's practical. And it doesn't mean that, again, as I was saying in the video, when you're making a decision, it doesn't mean that you don't factor in emotions, because they're, of course, very relevant, because humans are nothing but emotional, really. Just to say we're irrational is preposterous. And we're physical, and so we just sort of respond to pain and pleasure and relief, I suppose, if that's kind of whatever, you have this sort of change between states that also feels like something is, I think the Jains know that they have a word for hot and a word for cold, and they have a word for heat as you experience it when you come in from the cold, and vice versa, which is pretty freaking genius. I don't know where it comes into the religion part of it, but I'm like that. Why is the idea of decency and rights for everybody so fucking repugnant to non-leftists or non-libertarians? It's like, I mean, I say I'm right-wing, and I also say I'm libertarian, depending on what's called for under the circumstances. Whatever it is that sort of clarifies without... Well, people who say they hate labels, it's just like, well, that means that you hate any reference that gives language any possible function whatsoever. A label is not a pigeonhole. You don't just get one, you get lots, and everything's a fucking label. And so I said to someone recently online, like, I can't remember what exactly I said, but try to order an ice cream without using a label. Try calling your mum without using a label. So labels are very useful things indeed. And what I really wish I could just call myself a liberal, because that's what I am. Unfortunately, the label liberal has been co-opted and I'm gonna say appropriated, which is so really silly. I'm not blaming the entire left for this. I'm just blaming, young idiot activists. That's not what appropriate doesn't mean misappropriate or reappropriate. Appropriate is a kind of way of saying borrowing or using or you know, like, I'm sorry, vocabulary lady's gone. I can touch something oily today and went, ouch. That's where my vocabulary's up at the moment. My brain's really damaged. But I've still got more vocabulary than most people, which is why I seem okay. That's why most people can't see how damaged I am. Yes, so unfortunately leftists have appropriated the label liberal, and the dastardly problem with that is that it's not just a semantics error, which is fine. Semantics, you know, like if you're going to be a realist about how language works, you cannot be a purist, because I think one of the famous examples in linguistics, probably the most famous examples is, you think you speak English? Well, you try talking to someone who spoke Old English and see if there's a fucking thing you understand in common, because you're really not going to. You're probably not going to recognise any words, and if you do recognise a word, it's not going to mean what you think it did. Girl meant child, for example, and woman meant, I think wife just meant woman or something. Yeah, anyway, whatever. Here we go. It's not ADHD, it just seems like ADHD. It's PTSD. But anyway, I'm having fun rambling in my videos because I don't judge me, and if someone wants to watch my videos and, you know, bitch about what a dick I am, it's like, you are most welcome to do that. And I do have a few followers, and they are mounting, and no one ever likes the video, and no one ever shares, and no one ever comments. I mean, sometimes very rarely they do if it's a stranger. So I do get views, and I know that the people watching not my friends, and I know a few of them are people who I used to run with back when I realised, before I realised what normal people were like, and that they didn't run you down behind your back and say things to your face that they said the opposite behind your back, and everyone agreed and lied and backstabbed each other, but somehow always managed to unite against me. And cool, what a nice way to spend your life, I guess. Very nice. And of course, living your best life is the best revenge. And to borrow a quip from the internet, frantically Google's second best revenge, because I'm not living my best life. Yeah, I'm still cheerful, funnily enough. I'm still cheerful. That doesn't mean I don't have fucking meltdowns, like I'm very badly damaged. And that, getting back to the main point, right? So my GP has been, and she's far out, such a good GP. I'm so fucking lucky. I'm so lucky, because I had a real bad run. Oh my God, I got myself, I would have had better health care. Removing my own frontal lobe with a rusty blunt copper fucking draw handle. Yeah, that would have been better medical care. Been a lot less traumatic too. It would have been much more enjoyable. Yeah, and so she's really great, and so she doesn't coerce me into anything. But she's wanted me to go into respite care for a while because she sees that I'm in desperate fucking need of it. But she also completely understands that you can't go to respite which is a place to leave your stressors behind when your stressors exist in the wherever you are. I mean, like the processes that are going on, they don't stop politely for you to go and sort of recover by the seaside with a blanket on your knee, and then come on when it's not like it's just a lot of worse. It's a lot worse than that. Like, I've watched a few boxing matches in my time, thanks to my dad and thanks to a boyfriend I had. And I don't know much about boxing, but I do know I can pretty much recite the rank, pretty much recite and rank order the weight ranks, and from that I can look at a guy, and it's usually a guy, and not be too many, levels up or up. It might be like maximum 2 levels up or down, out, and there are a lot of weight categories. There's got to be like 12, I guess, maybe a bit more for amateur, and like some of the fights are insane. Like, I've watched very little women's boxing because I'm afraid that most people, I'm sorry, but it's not men's fault. Women's, I think someone else said, it might be Ben Shapiro, look, don't blame men for women's sports being unpopular and not bringing in enough income to pay them highly. It's like, ladies, you're half the population, go out there and support women's sports. But women just aren't really into watching sports. So it's like, well, some women's sport can be very interesting to watch. So I've heard. I'm not into sports. But generally speaking, if a guy's going to be wanting to watch something like boxing, or I don't know, maybe not boxing, I don't know. They want to watch guys do it because it's just better. You've just got better bodies, doing cooler things, I think, really. And I hate sports. I hate watching sports, but I don't mind watching boxing because it's there's no teamwork, and I've never been good at teamwork. Like, team sports is always an absolute fucking disaster for me. But it's just like, quite amazing watching these guys. And I watched women. I watched a woman. I don't know what weight they were, but they looked, if they were men, they would have been welterweights. And it was like the most brutal fucking fight I've ever seen. And it wasn't kickboxing or anything. It wasn't MMA. It was like just boxing. And it was like, oh my God, they are really going for it. And they were totally like, they weren't, like, the whistle didn't go for any low blows or anything. Like, it wasn't a cat fight, it was a fucking full-on fucking fight. It was fucking wild. It was really entertaining. And I noticed that most, from watching, you know, boxing in general, like, I noticed that most KOs are TKOs. Well, that's in my experience. Like, it's someone's gonna, you know, the ref or whoever, the guy who wouldn't ordinarily be a ref, would step in and really not make someone who's basically gonna die with the next blow get up, you know, take his feet again, you know, like, and then they do have breaks between rounds where people can go back to their corner and, you know, like, if I can vomit up some blood or, you know, get a butterfly stitch on a fucking huge gash. You know, like, that's more than Mikhail Baryshnikov got, but it's just his silly fault. But, you know, there are rules. There are fucking rules, and this is fighting, and there are fucking rules, and there is decency, and you know, you can't just yeah, the weight ranges, you know, the fucking weight ranges. It's like, I don't know what would fucking happen watching like I don't know what would happen watching a heavyweight, just say heavyweight, and what's a bit under welter, like, say let's just say we're lightweight. Let's just go heavyweight, lightweight. I don't even know what that would fucking look like. I really fucking don't know. I honestly find, like, the heavyweights are the most boring. Like, they're just in these clinches half the time. They're just in clinches. And, yeah, I don't know. I know nothing about the technical side of it, but it's just really boring. There's a lot of blood dripping down faces, but there's just, like, men, just big fat men just, like, stumbling around and holding each other, and I'm like, so I don't know if it's an advantage or not to be that heavy if you've got someone who's much more nimble and, you know, whatever. I don't know. But all I know is there are weight categories for a fucking reason. And you have mixed martial arts where fucking anything kind of goes. But I'm not aware of any sport where it's just like the more people on one side beating up one person who doesn't even know the sport, where that's like cool. And the only time I've ever fucking seen that is in the fucking tenancy tribunal. It's like, just fucking, what is this? What is this? Should someone be thrown into fucking oubliesque afterwards? Should they be like, it's fucking just bonkers, man. It's just fucking bonkers. So I'm like really not coping, and fucking nobody would cope. And when I go a bit fucking nutty sometimes, it's like not my fucking fault. It really is not. And if you look at what happens to people's brains when they go through chronic traumatic, like long-term chronic, I mean, chronic's already a long-term, already means long-term, but when you go through long-term chronic stress, you have that stress hormone running all the fucking time. And it is a fucking, like, adrenaline is a fucking useful fucking hormone to have. You could do fuck all without it, but it's like having you know, like, I don't know. What's a good analogy? It's like having a fucking nip of scotch before your dad's funeral. Is distinct from drinking, you know, like a fucking 100 ml, you know, bottle, and then, you know, actually getting alcohol poisoning and having to go to hospital and get your stomach pumped and your electrolytes rebalanced and doing permanent damage to your liver. Like there's a bit of a difference, right? And so I'm in the latter case, but I'm not doing it on purpose. Like it's not me. I'm not fucking taking the fucking adrenaline that's been given to me. And the Tenancy Tribunal adjudicators have less humanity and knowledge about human coping limits than referees or whatever the fuck is, I don't know what they're called, in a boxing match. Like, oh my God, I would, you know, like I would really, I think I'd just like to fucking, I think I'd just rather be genuinely KO'd and have half my face crushed in by Evander Holyfield and then get taken to hospital and start my recovery process. I think that would be like much better than what I've been going through, like seriously, you know, like there would actually be medics there who wouldn't just go, oh my God, how could you abuse Evander like that? Which is what's happening to me. It's like I'm lying on the ground with my fucking, you know, eye socket caved in, like blood just gushing out of anywhere, everywhere. And people are going, why did you do him like that? Shit, man, like you were going to be in so much trouble. So, that's a lot of talk about boxing from someone who doesn't know anything about boxing. Yeah. So, I don't know why I got, like all roads lead to Rome, just talking about my actual brain damage, because it is an actual brain damage and I really actually want a brain scan. And because I really think, because PTSD and TBI, traumatic brain injury, are often whanaku together, and I haven't quite figured out that why that is, but often the population that's being reported on has done a tour of duty in some battle, and I'm not really sure about the relationship, but I don't think it would take a round table to figure out why they would correlate. But I also understand that, as I say over and over again ad infinitum, I say it over and over and over again because it's true, and also because I do have a fucking brain injury, that I think that's what I've got, because it's not just an analogy, it actually is like, yeah, the effect is like an impact, and I'm not dumb. I don't think I've lost any intellect, but I have lost my ability to think multidimensionally. And thinking multidimensionally was one of my super fucking powers. And those, like, I would have maps in my head that, like when when you're younger, like there's things you do when you're younger. Like there are two prejudices that you have about other people. One is that they have no experiences like your own, and others that all their experiences are like your own. like in terms of your cognition and your what you observe and how you process sensory data, or how you even decide what of what you sense are actually data and what are not. Anyone who's interested in that should look up Donald Hoffman, who's he's quite good at sort of physicsy kind of stuff, but I think he's neurologist, he's like some neurology kind of guy, but he's fucking amazing. Like, God, it's all about, we see what was evolutionary advantageous for us to see. So what we're looking at is not what is there, it's just the most useful way that our modern selves, being the survivors, have, what we have now, our way that we perceive the physical environment, what we think is the physical environment is simply the most adaptive strategy that the breeding individuals have formed. Like, in a good analogy, it's not that he used it, was like, flies have those, those faceted eyes. So the reason that they have those, or the reason that the ones that have survived have those and they keep breeding, is because those faceted eyes will pick up any fucking little movement, because each facet is a whole screen and you can't ignore a whole screen going blah, blah, blah. Whereas for me, I'm, like anybody, you can see a little dust particle, but it's just passing through my normal vision, which is not only continuous, but largely created by my brain just to try and make the image a bit smoother. So a lot of what we see that's looks like what the fuck is that, a ghost, or what the fuck was that, like, what was that, something just beamed in and then beamed out, it's like, okay, well, that's just your brain just having not done has got a job at smoothing over, like crack spackling the actual shit that's there. So yeah, I mean, I like rambling to myself. It's nice. So yeah, so my superpower, you can see that I've taken my Ritalin, so I can actually know what I'm talking about. It just doesn't cure PTSD and the other cognitive damages that I've got. So yeah, I think in hierarchy sort of charts, and I get very frustrated when other people don't, and it's kind of like this horrible, it's not even horrible, it's just like this sense of despair, and it's like, oh my God, I'm never ever going to connect with this person intellectually or perceptually, or there's no way for us to communicate, because I don't know what their thought structure is, but they don't understand what the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm talking about really clear, you have branches and levels. It's like a family tree, and you go down, or it's like a management structure chart, you go down, everyone knows a fucking, a hierarchy chart, and I find people, you're supposed to be talking at this level and deciding which branch to go down, or debating about which branches have gone down, and then someone's already gone down one branch and thinks that you're arguing in there. And that's how I've had really frustrating arguments with a fuckload of people about the minimum wage, because really what I'm describing, what's happened, is I'm at this level where we're talking about what is the best pay rate for people to have, for an economy, for the health of the economy, because the health of the economy is not the health of money. The health of the economy is the health of the people in the economy, because you can have an economy like you have a society or a political system. It's all full of people. It's not about money. It's about, money doesn't have any fucking interests. And it's not about advantaging rich people. It's about, can we just agree, even if we fucking disagree about how it's done, can we just agree that we all want the economy to work so people have the best outcome and the fairest outcome for everybody? The best opportunity, at least, depending on which political spectrum you have. But whatever side of the political spectrum is, if you believe in distribution rather than, socialism proper, then you're going to need a healthy economy. And I'm sorry, but it's not going to be designed by Lenin or Marx or, so whatever it is, it's like we just assume that we're on the same side trying to find the best result. And I'm up here on this level, on this platform, and we're talking about what is the best. And we've already talked about the economy, and we're just talking about, okay, what's the best pay rate to pay people for the health of the economy, which means the health of the people in it, which is just another lens through which to look at people, the humans. Of course, paying an individual $40 an hour minimum wage, and unlimited sick leave and all that stuff is going to be great for the individual. But you're not putting more money into the economy, you're taking money out of the economy because you're taking it from somebody else. And it's not an investment, it's just a fucking transfer. So it's not like a money-making, it's not like an investment where, like, in that sense, it really is like the fucking dumbasses with the, why are millionaires taking the biggest slice of the pie, billionaires? And it's like, they're not taking any slice of the fucking pie, they are making new pies. And they will give you some pie if you want to work for them. And if you want to work for them, and then stop acting like they put you into slavery because you actually had to apply for that job. And most people who apply for a job don't get it. And if they do even get an interview, which most people don't get, you've got to turn up to the interview. And then if you get it, if that goes well and they offer you the job and they give you a contract to sign and you sign it, and then they say you've got to turn up at like 8 o'clock Monday to Friday, and you do that, where is the slavery? Where? And then people say, but if you don't work, then you need a job. You need a job. As if that, like, is a really good fucking retort to the fact that if you don't like it, you can quit. And it's like, yeah, you do need a job. And do you know who gives you jobs? People with money to pay you. Do you know who doesn't give jobs? People with no money. Anyway, so I just find people are always down. I'm trying to talk to them. They've already assumed that paying people enough for them to participate in society at whatever free-ranging level that ends up being. I mean, the sky's the freaking limit. And if you've ever had someone really intelligent explaining the difference between positive rights and negative rights to you, you will understand the impossibility of ever being entitled to anything that you did not produce yourself, however that may be conceptualised. Because where do positive rights end? Negative rights end where negative rights are, you don't fucking touch me because I don't belong to you, and stay the fuck away from me and everything that belongs to me. Again, we can negotiate different ideas about what belongs to somebody, but it's like your liberty ends where my liberty begins. And it's the thing is, like, you can punch as far as I'll just tuck my thumb in. You can punch as far as you like around your body, but you just can't punch as far as my face. And people will go, oh my God, that's so authoritarian, like they say about tax and, enforce charity by, all this crazy fucking new ways to tax people. It's like, that's not authoritarian, that is literally libertarian. You are authoritarian because you think that because you want to punch someone in the face and they don't let you, they're being a big controlling meanie. And so these people are arguing down one rung of this fucking thing about minimum wage, and I'm up here trying to talk about which even is the right rate to pay somebody, which I don't bloody know. Which is why I like to listen to people who do know what the fuck they're talking about, and they're not often economists, but sometimes they are. Let's say that most of them are economists, but let's say that most economists aren't very good at it. But I like Thomas Sowell, who is just... his eyeballs are about to roll so far back into the back of his head at modern society that I'm not even sure that he can see properly anymore. But yeah, he went from a Marxist to a what's that guy's name? The one that all leftist economists hate. Totally forgot. Anyway, you want to listen to people who can actually tell you a story that makes sense to you and not go, oh, it's just too complicated. Like, lots of things are too complicated, and it's not true what Einstein or someone, I don't know, it's supposed to be Einstein, but maybe it wasn't Einstein. Whatever that person said, they said, if you can't explain it to a child, you don't understand it well enough. Now, that is not true. It's not true. It's plainly not true, because children are not adults and they do not have the faculties to understand what adults do. And that's pretty much why we have something called parenting, and why in every single culture that exists there is a coming of age stage, and it can vary greatly. It can be fucking 12, it can be 18, it can be 21, but we all have an idea of when people are allowed to make their own decisions without, blowing up their whole life. So no, some things are too complicated to explain to children, but you should be able to explain it to another adult without going, oh, you wouldn't understand, or yeah, it's just really complicated. And if you find yourself stumbling and saying, oh, it's really complicated, it's probably at that point that you better say, actually, I think I don't know enough about this, and I think I ought to go back, and actually I feel quite challenged by this question, which indicates to me that I could be wrong. And that could lead me into so many of the other topics that I want to ramble to myself about. But I really do need to get back to the reason that I started this is because, yeah, so back to my GP who's not coercive at all, but she sees that I need to be in respite. And unfortunately, as I said, I can't go into respite when I don't even get a fucking, I don't even get any water fucking splashed on my fucking bloody face between rounds by my trainer. Like I literally can't even get anyone to wipe the blood out of my eyes so I can fucking see. Like they won't even let me put my mouth guard back in. Like like so it's become this kind of rock and a hard place where it is this different, like, what do you do when you have to do something but you can't do it? Now that's a question for physics, and that is usually expressed in by the two variables, the unstoppable force and the immovable object. And you can't change the rules of the thought project or whatever, or the very physical matter reality of the thing by saying, well, we might find that one's actually a little bit weaker or whatever than the other. And no, because in a thought experiment or a first principle, the facts are the fucking facts. And it's got nothing to do with being rigid and refusing to open your mind. We are talking about principles that have been defined as they have been defined. You cannot take a definition of something and then say that that definition may not be the definition that it is, because it's like, this is a fucking concept. The definition is the concept. Like that's just what it is. It's simpliciter. It's just fucking, it's a first principle, right? It's like this whole fucking bullshit with 1 + 2, 2 + 2 might equal 5. It's like, no. Only if you change the definition of 2 or 5, and then that's defeated the entire purpose of the whole discussion, since we've already defined 2 and we've already defined 5, so we accept that those are the realities of the things we're talking about, even if those things that are subject to those realities may not in niche existence exist, which is, and people don't get this. People don't get fucking concepts. They think, concepts are just fucking stupid. What are concepts? They're fucking just ideas. You just need to do stuff. It's like, okay, buddy, you go build a house without fucking blueprint. Okay. Go and you go do stuff. You try to do something without thinking, and try thinking a little bit when you do something and see how much better it is, and then try thinking a little bit more and see how much better it is, and then start connecting thoughts. And then connect enough thoughts to the point that you've got a bit of a theoretical basis in which you can conceive of what you want to do or to convey could wander around in as a kind of like a showcase or a framework. Now you know what concepts are for. So what do you do? So because of the Tenancy Tribunal, I appear to be facing an unstoppable force, and defined in a specific way, which is reasonably important, because it's kind of my future of having a home. And the other thing is we've got is my cognitive disabilities, which are, I'm afraid, an immovable object. And what the fuck do you do? Like, what the fuck do you do? It's just a simply fucking impossible situation. And I just have to hand it to the fucking government. I don't know if I can blame Labour for this, but I'm fucking tempted to, because it's not like stupid fucking people worked in the fucking judicial system before. It's just that there was some accountability when they fucking fucked up fucking majorly with a really fucking shirty attitude. You know? So I can't keep ploughing on because I don't have the fucking physical ability to do it, because the damage in here, it's not my emotions, it's my fucking neurons. It's grey matter, white matter. There are so many different parts of the brain and they do so many different things, and I haven't studied neurology, but I understand a little bit about the parts of my brain that are affected and a little bit about why they're affected, and I keep going on and on and on about the prefrontal cortex, which, as I understand, is something a bit like adrenaline. And in fact, I think that's sort of activated by adrenaline, or they have some sort of relationship, you know, cortisol, where it's there to solve problems and to, you know, deal with the unexpected. It's like the police or a fire station or something. It's an emergency sort of service. And the emergency is obviously on a smaller scale. Like, it could just be missing your bus, or it could be, you know, losing your baby's shoe, or forgetting toilet paper from the supermarket, like quite mundane things. But it's stuff where your autopilot is not going to help you. It already hasn't, you know. And or, you know, being, you know, fucking accosted suddenly by a visitor knocking on your door, like, and you haven't got any bickies. You know, it's there to solve problems, you know, and they don't have to be fucking tragedies, disasters, but it's there to solve problems. And I've been solving problems almost non-stop for 18 months. And that's why, and my brain, my amygdala is, as I said last night, not my amygdala, my prefrontal cortex is like, what do you want from me? Like, my prefrontal, I'm asking things of my prefrontal cortex that you wouldn't ask of Superman. You know, my prefrontal cortex is just like, can you just let me die? Can you let me die now? I need to die. And that's what respite's for. So you don't go into respite going, right, I'm taking my fucking briefcase and going to bring up a map of the world and get my fucking button connected to the nuclear bomb in case I need to, you know, like, you're not in there to fucking solve fucking big problems. You're there to get away from the fucking big problems. And these fucking terrorists at the Tenancy Tribunal, to be honest, I'm really not sure what the barrier is. I'm really not sure, because I don't really know how it works behind the scenes there. But I do know that there is a bouncer that they call the registrar. It's quite cute, calling the bouncer the registrar. And that I don't know what she's doing. I'm pretty sure I made her my mortal enemy probably back in about November. I don't know what kind of person she is. She could be, with the fucking state of civil servants these days, I would not be at all surprised if she had absolutely no ability to put her own feelings about people aside. I would have no trouble believing that at all. I send her stuff. Some of it gets through to the adjudicators. I don't know how much gets through to the adjudicators that she says has got through to the adjudicators. I don't know how much, what does get through to the adjudicators actually look at. I don't fucking know. But something fucking bonkers is fucking coming for me with a blunt spoon. And like, I collapse all the time. Like, I collapse quite a few times, and it sort of sucks a bit. It's like the ending of, it's like Peter Jackson's ending to King Kong. It's like, right, well, I'm just going to have to pick an ending at this point to walk out, because I don't know how many more there are to come. We've had 5. At this stage, it's anyone's guess how many more endings are going to come. So I really feel that this ending is probably as good as any. But yeah, I don't choose it. It's just like, I guess having a total fucking stress breakdown is, it's even worse than it sounds, because you come in and out, and you come in and out of caring. Like, you come in and out of this fucking collapse. Like, there are days that I cannot get out of bed. And I'm not talking about the days, and it's not often. It's not often. Mostly because I really, really, really hate staying in bed. I find it very, very painful to stay in bed. It just feels horrible. But I guess what I mean by I can't get out of bed is sort of can't, meaningfully get off the sofa. And lately, what I'm experiencing is something that's starting to quite worry me. And I don't know if it's I don't know, like, because there's such a big cluster of what's going on, and it's all kind of interrelated. Like, it's chronic fatigue syndrome, it's exhaustion disorder, which is, it's characterised as, the exhaustion is characterised as caused by stress, and usually people who start getting into the first phase are just encouraged to, pull back on work, take some commitments off, try to delegate more if they're the boss, maybe give the kids to the parents for the weekend, something like that. But it doesn't work when you're being persecuted by somebody else who knows their impact on people, and that's just what they do. So I don't have the choice. Like, I don't have the choice to put the load down. The load just keeps coming at me, as I say, with a fucking blunt spoon. And there are so many different ways to collapse during all of this fucking cluster of like, it's just like, it's pure stress. Like, it's just pure fucking stress. Not much anxiety, heaps and heaps of fucking stress, and just like, oh my God, like, I can't think. Like, I just can't think. And I was trying to explain in an email that, who knows what we meant to the Tenancy Tribunal. I just said it like, it's like, focusing, and this is one of the emails that I sent out to fucking everybody in the fucking universe. Yeah, it's like when you try to focus really hard, but all you get with focusing harder is finer grained static. It's like, I can't, it's not a matter of trying, and trying in itself worsens my condition. It further damages my prefrontal cortex. It could end up, well, I mean, I've said it's done. Like, permanent damage is fucking done, man. Like, no, it's just so many different things, and I so, you know, you just can't, like, I guess, you know, the answer to the question is what happens, like, what fucking happens at the interface of you have to, but you can't, and what happens is that you don't, and seriously bad shit happens. I don't know what happens in a physics sense. I'm not sure, but in a human life sense, it's just like, well, just things don't work out. That's what happens. I mean, you know, like, what happens when you have to but you can't? Well, you might get your head cut off. You might lose your house. Kids might die. You might lose all of your family photos. Your child might get raped and abducted. I mean, I think people have to really realise that things do not always turn out okay. That's the most ridiculous fucking thing ever anyone ever fucking said. Things do not always work out okay. It's just fucking patiently ridiculous. Let alone in the end. Try explaining that to a fucking murder victim. Oh, it'll work out in the end. How? Gosh, you know, some people get fucking tortured to death. It's like, oh God, like, just, so, you know, I feel like if I got a respite, then, well, you know, I gotta do what I gotta do. I mean, there was a point, you know, like, I've thought, like, this is always with me, and it's always with me for getting on for 9 months and over 7 months since it hit the tribunal, and the tribunal have been participating more or less cognizantly in this. It's like, can you imagine living for that long, being, you know, targeted in your home, and then just spending months on end not knowing if your home is going to be taken from you, and it's just like Schrodinger's home, like, is this my home or not? Like, I fucking love my fucking home, and home is really, really important to me, and I'm not saying it's more important to me than it is to other humans, but I mean to all other humans, you know, like in a completely remarkable way, but it certainly is much more important to me than you know, quite a few humans, and there's lots of reasons for that, and I don't think no human mind is designed to cope with that length of uncertainty. Like, we don't, like, you've got to do a real, like, people who do cope unscathed with that are like, you know, Navy SEALs, you know, and the people who have to deal with it often have no ability to, you know, they've got no training to withstand it. I mean, I hope Madeleine McCann's parents have, aren't still sort of in that horrible state of hope every day, but they would have been for a fucking long time, and hope is a horrible fucking thing. It's a horrible fucking thing, and if you think back like 10 years and how they'd still, like, we're just not meant to cope with this. And I'm not free to make my own decisions because I don't have enough money, and I'm sick, and I don't have a social network, and I can't find anyone who cares enough or is prepared to really stick with me through this. And I don't feel like anyone really owes it to me apart from the people who are abusing me and the justice system. But man, it is the justice system, but it's like, how can you keep doing this to somebody, and how can people not see that, the people who laugh, because I know Terry, I know Lincoln, I know Mike, they love a person in distress because they're just so easy to, it's delicious because they're so disgraceful. The scorn you can pour on them, it's just so, it's just so delicious. It turned out one of the people who broadened one of my latest insane cry for help to, well, just fucking at this point it's just like a fuck you all fucking, like, I think I've been doing that for a few of these fucking meltdowns. Like, what the fuck do you fucking think you're doing? You fucking pieces of shit. Honestly, pieces of fucking shit. Be pieces of shit. I don't care. That's your prerogative. That's your decision to make. It's your decision to go and pretend to be nice people and fucking, rip people to shreds behind their back when they need help the most. Like, it's totally your shtick, and there are enough of you in this world that I don't particularly care anymore what you're doing to other people, because the amount of, like, in-group fighting and it's just a fucking cesspit, because when you can't feed on an outsider, you feed on your own, and yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I have had the whole lot of them have, every single one of those people